Hi, Jeremy here. And if you're like me and you've ever struggled with perfectionism and the related issue of procrastination, then you're in the right place at the right time. This may seem crazy to people who've never struggled with the desperate need to be perfect, but perfectionism can be a recipe for stress, anxiety, and often burnout. So today I'm going to give you 5 steps, 5 strategies to help you overcome perfectionism and procrastination. Feel free to forward the link to this video to anyone you think could benefit from it, or even post it to your social media, because you never know who it could help. Right, let's get straight into it. Step number 1, realize that you're not alone and admit that you struggle with perfectionism. People say when you have a job interview and you get to that question, so tell us what you would say your greatest weakness is, you should pause, look the interviewer in the eye and reply, perfectionism. I know I work way too hard and I won't stop until everything is perfect. That's my struggle. Now, we can joke about it, but if you struggle with perfectionism, and that's certainly been my story through the years, you'll know just how isolating and lonely it can feel when you can't show other people the pressure that builds up in you, and the anxious feelings that you're going to fail because it won't be perfect, and that desperate need to hide who you are, your non-perfect self, because if people see the real you, they won't accept you or they won't love you. We did an online survey recently in preparation for the Mindset Makeover course that we're putting the finishing touches to, and when we asked people what they struggled with as far as changing to a more positive mindset, do you know what the number one response was by a long way? Perfectionism. Now, if that's your struggle, then realize that you're not alone, and it's okay to admit your struggle. Because when you do, you'll actually discover that other people will go, thank God, someone else is struggling with that too. It's such a relief. Step 2, recognize that perfectionism is a form of self-abuse and start to be kind to yourself. Psychologist David Burns describes a perfectionist as a person whose standards are high beyond reach or reason, who strains compulsively and unremittingly towards impossible goals, and who measures their own worth entirely in terms of productivity and accomplishment. Now think about that for a moment. Your standards are high beyond reach or reason. You set impossible goals, and then you measure your self-worth entirely on whether you can reach those impossible goals. What does that look like? Well, it becomes the perfectionism cycle. You know, the truly depressing thing is that even when I achieved the goals I'd set, I had this momentary buzz of feeling good, but it wouldn't shift that feeling of not being worthwhile or lovable inside me. And so I'd feel like I had to keep setting more and more impossible goals. Can you relate to that? Well, that's what the perfectionism cycle looks like, but this is how it feels. Hamster on a wheel. Do you recognize that feeling? You're running as fast as you can, but you don't seem to be able to get off the wheel. So let me ask you, what parent would take a 4-year-old, set up a high jump, raise the bar to 3 meters, and then say, honey, sweetie, I'll love you when you can jump over that bar? I mean, sadly, there are parents who have done and still do set impossible standards for their kids. And we'll talk about that a little more in a moment. But who would do that to another human being? Would you set impossible goals for someone and then tell them over and over that they're a worthless failure when they don't achieve them? Well, that's what I did to myself for years. And stop for a moment and think and be honest about that. Is this what you're doing to yourself right now? Now, before you say, yes, Jeremy, but perfectionism has driven me to achieve and succeed in life, I wouldn't be where I am today without it. I'm sorry, and excuse my language, but I'm just going to call bullshit on that, right? Extensive studies have shown that perfectionism isn't correlated with better job performance, with greater success, or with more happiness. In fact, it actually causes more stress, more anxiety, more unhappiness, and none of those things help you perform better. So if you've been successful in life, that's actually because you are a talented, capable, hard-working person. You've succeeded in spite of your perfectionism, not because of it. The bottom line is You need to recognize that the perfectionism cycle is a form of abuse, and you need to start being kind to yourself. You deserve some kindness. Step 3, understand that your procrastination isn't lack of willpower, it's a protection strategy. Yes, almost everyone procrastinates sometimes, but people struggling with perfectionism can have a special relationship with procrastination. You see, when you set impossible goals beyond reach or reason, and you believe that perfection is the only result that's acceptable, that creates a lot of anxiety, because deep inside you, you know that you can never achieve this impossible standard, and you fear the disappointment, the shame, and most of all, the pain that this will bring. Our brains aren't programmed to help us succeed. First and foremost, they're programmed to help us survive, and that means avoiding the risk and the pain. So your brain tries to protect you from this potential pain, and it says, let's get distracted, let's focus on something else, let's clean the house, let's binge watch Netflix, let's go to the gym, let's focus on looking after other people, let's get drunk, let's pick a fight with our partner, let's do whatever it takes to avoid the potential failure of not being good enough once again. And that's why you procrastinate, which of course just makes everything else worse. That creates more pressure, more stress, and in the end you either work through the night to desperately achieve the goal, or you crash and burn. And either way, you end up feeling like crap. And so what's the solution? Set another impossible goal. So understand that your procrastination isn't because of weakness or lack of willpower. It's your brain trying to protect you from the pain of disappointment and shame. Does that make sense? Okay, now it's time to get right up in perfectionism's face and call it out for what it is, which is it's a liar. Because the fact is that most of the fears that keep us in this perfectionism cycle, when you really examine them, most of those fears are based either on total misunderstandings or on someone else's ridiculous expectations. I want to warn you that it's almost impossible to work through this stuff without feeling some emotion. And I can tell you, when I started confronting some of my beliefs about having to be perfect, when I started to see that they were based on my own misunderstandings and other people's impossible expectations, I felt really angry and I felt really sad. And you'll understand both of those things as I explain this next step. Step number 4, set your inner child free and give them the love and acceptance they desire and deserve. As a parent, I'm only too aware that I'm setting my kids up for therapy in later life. Now, they're older now and we joke about all the ways I've probably screwed up their lives. But I've always tried to do my best, and I know I still don't always get it right. The thing is, young children have this built-in desire to please adults, especially their parents, even if they're abusive. When we're small, we don't have the thinking skills or the life experience to understand that our parents aren't perfect, and sometimes they get it wrong. Children are at the mercy of adults when it comes to building their sense of self-worth. And as kids, we believe the messages we get, even when they're not true or when we get them mixed up. And we internalize them, and those beliefs and understandings become our truth. To the point that we will continue to find evidence to support what we believe about ourselves, even when it's not objectively true. So, what are some of the causes of perfectionism? Well, it usually starts in our childhood. So things like rigid, high, sometimes unrealistic parental expectations. Highly critical, shaming parents. I mean, people often ask me, what's the difference between guilt and shame? Guilt says I've done something bad or wrong, but shame says I am bad or wrong. Shame causes us to believe that we're unworthy or unlovable, and there's a huge difference between a parent telling us we've done the wrong thing and one who is telling us that we are the wrong thing. Perfectionism can also be driven by excessive focus on your achievements, only getting praise or affirmation for what you do, not for who you are. Sometimes it can be the result of needing to feel in control. If I'm just perfect, then maybe my parents won't break up or they won't be abusive. If I can just be perfect, they won't have a reason to be angry. And sometimes perfectionism can be caused by crazy cultural expectations that are just not realistic. I don't know what the causes of perfectionism are in your life, but for me it was having parents who for different reasons weren't able to communicate the love and physical affection I desperately wanted and needed when I was young. But it's going to be different for each person. At the end, I'm going to give you a tool that you can use to help you dig down to identify what might be some of the causes of perfectionism in your life. But I can almost guarantee that if you're struggling with perfectionism, then you've got an inner child, a precious, beautiful, vulnerable little girl or boy inside you who needs to be set free, to know deep in their heart that they are accepted and loved, not for what they do or what they can achieve or because they're perfect, but simply because they are. The fact is, you are intrinsically lovable. You are valuable. You are infinitely precious and so worthy of love. One of the things I love about the Mindset Makeover course is that it creates a bit of space every day for 30 days to be kind to yourself, to pour positivity into your life, to spend some time recognizing the false beliefs and thinking patterns that have been running your life and start to change them. It creates some time to nurture and love that inner child and set them free so that you can experience a new level of acceptance and joy and freedom in your life. And it gives you some simple, powerful tools that can literally change your thinking and your life. Okay, one more step. Step 5. Get perfect at being imperfect. You know, the thing about us perfectionists is that we work really hard at getting good at stuff. But perfectionism is exhausting. Do you find that? I used to really admire a mate of mine. Paul was really good at his job, but what I really admired about him was he had a saying, 80% is good enough. And I would be working and sweating and stressing to get 95% or 99% on a project, but he'd look at something and go, yep, that's good enough, and then go for a surf. And I wished I could be more like him because he seemed to be much less stressed and so much more happy than I was. And it's true, the 80-20 rule, the Pareto principle it's called, is your friend. It says that 20% of your activities will contribute to 80% of your results. In other words, more is not always better. And chasing perfection is not a recipe for success. It's a recipe for frustration and burnout because the more work you do, the less return you get past a certain point. That's why my advice to you is get perfect at being imperfect. Get good at trying things and not being good at them. If you're struggling with perfectionism, you won't believe how freeing this is. In psychology, aversion therapy is a way of overcoming your fears by exposing yourself to what you're afraid of. It works for snakes, for heights, and surprise, surprise, it works for fear of not being perfect. So start by doing something that you're not good at, deliberately, and then discover that when you fail, when you're not instantly perfect at it, guess what? The sky doesn't fall down. People don't hate you or reject you. In fact, they kind of like you. Why? Because you're just like them. You're imperfect. I said earlier that I'd leave you with a tool that you can use to start to get to the root of your perfectionism. So here it is. It's called the 7 Layers Deep exercise. Now, if you join us on the Mindset Makeover course, we use it to help you find your mission and purpose in life, which is so exciting. But today, I want to suggest that you use it to help you understand your need to be perfect. So here's what you do. Grab a piece of paper or your journal and a pen, and then complete this sentence. If I'm not perfect, that would mean that, ... And complete it with whatever the consequence would be for you. So for example, for me, if I'm not perfect, then that would mean that I might let people down. Now, go another layer deeper. Take that response and put it into the formula. So for me, if I let people down, that would mean that they might see that I'm not perfect. Now, go another layer deeper. If they saw I'm not perfect, that would mean that they would be disappointed with me. I'm not going to go through the 7 layers for me because I don't want to influence your responses. They're going to be different for each one of us. But keep pushing yourself to be honest, to really dig into what each of these things would mean for you. And you'll find that each time you get deeper, you get closer to the underlying reason that you feel you have to be perfect. Expect to feel some emotion with this. This is getting down to the core of who you are and what you believe about yourself. One final thing, if this brings up strong emotions for you or painful memories, talk to someone about it. For me, I went through this process and I knew I needed some professional help to work through it. I was resistant, but I knew that there were some deep hurts that I needed help to process, and the counseling made a heap of difference. So don't be afraid to seek help. Stay tuned for more info about the Mindset Makeover course, and in the next video I want to introduce you to two of the most powerful tools I know to help you shift limited thinking and beliefs and bring lasting change and transformation to your thinking, to your life and to your future. I'm talking about two tools to help you unbolt your thinking from those disempowering beliefs and start to rebuild more empowering beliefs and thinking that can take you on into the future without all the baggage that you've been dragging around. Does that sound good? I would love to get your feedback on this video. What did you find helpful? What did you like? What questions did it raise for you? So let me know in the comments below. I'm Jeremy, and I'll see you next time. And remember, just in case you're wondering, you are awesome. Have a great day.